You shall be BLACULA.
BLACULA, the Black Avenger, rising from his tomb to fill the night with horror. BLACULA, Dracula's soul brother, deadlier even than he.
You know, he is a strange dude.
You're a nut that ran in front of my cab. You're the only imbecile on this street. Boy.
BLACULA.
Look at man, you found out he's got to be around here somewhere. I mean, now listen, you take your hands off of me. I don't know you.
He thirsts for your blood. He hungers for your soul. Warm young bodies will feed his hunger. Hot, fresh blood will quench his awful thirst.
Thank you, Bloody Mary. Are you into the occult? How about the heavy stuff?
What do you think of vampires?
Vampires? I think they're possibly the most fascinating ball.
More horrifying than Dracula. The Black Avenger, BLACULA, from American International Pictures.
And good morning, gang. Welcome to day 10 of 31 Days of Monsters. We have a Saturday double feature. We're going to talk about 1972's BLACULA and 1973's Scream, BLACULA, Scream. These are two really, really fun and good movies. Made good because of the wonderful William Marshall, who plays BLACULA in it. Without him, this is just traditional B pictures, but William Marshall was such an imposing and great actor, trained in Broadway, trained in opera, and trained in Shakespeare. And he brings so much gravitas to these movies that it's just a thrill to watch him in every scene. He's a towering 6'5", so he's very impressive as BLACULA. This movie, the first one we're going to talk about, Dracula's soul brother, BLACULA, the first one, was one of the biggest grossing films in 1972. So you knew they were going to do a sequel after that. If you noticed in the beginning there, what's his name? Charles Macaulay plays Dracula, and he's the one who curses William Marshall. There's a lot of cool Star Trek crossovers in these two movies as well. Of course, we have William Marshall. Oh, by the way, if you want to watch these movies, you should pick up this Blu-ray. It's got the two of them together, BLACULA and Scream, BLACULA, Scream. Really nice, cleaned up Blu-ray versions. I highly recommend it because these again are fun movies. Well, let's talk a little bit more about William Marshall, who's really the star of this, and his character. What the heck's his name? Mama Lume? No, that's not it. It's Mama Wilde. Mama Wilde. Yeah, that's it. Mama Wilde is a African prince, and he is he goes to this European country. We find out later, I guess it's Transylvania, to discuss the ending of the slave trade. And he's talking to Dracula, only doesn't know it's Dracula. And shit happens, a fight starts, and Dracula ends up cursing him, biting him, and you saw that in the trailer there, where it turns him into BLACULA. And then I think that's in 1780, and then 1972, a couple of gay antique collectors buy the castle and everything in it, just so they could get all the antiques and stuff, and a coffin is part of it. And they bring the coffin back to the United States, unlock it, and release BLACULA into modern day Los Angeles. And then, you know, he goes about doing what vampires do. It's a good movie. It's a lot of fun, and as I mentioned, there's a cool Star Trek connection there. The character who plays Dracula, Charles Macaulay, here, you will remember him in the second season Star Trek episode Wolf on the Fold. He plays the prefect. I remember the first time I saw BLACULA and I saw this guy, I'm like, gosh, he has a certain cadence and a look to him, and I couldn't figure out where that came from. And yeah, that's it. Of course, William Marshall, who plays the lead character in BLACULA, was also in Star Trek. Another second season episode, The Ultimate Computer. He plays Dr. Richard Daystrom, the guy who created the M5 unit, you know, and the computer systems that everybody uses. He steals every scene in this episode too, because he's so powerful, such a great actor. William Marshall later on went on to play the King of Cartoons on Pee-wee's Playhouse. So here he is, BLACULA himself, with Pee Wee Herman. Another classic actor, character actor that appears is Elijah Cook Jr. Now, if you don't know Elijah Cook Jr., then you must not have seen the classic John Huston film, The Maltese Falcon. He plays Wilmer, the Gunsel. It's dogging on Philip Marlowe here, or Sam Spade. But Elijah Cook Jr. is a great actor, been in a million things, TV, movies. And these guys all bring a little something extra to these shows, which is kind of cool. I try to find a little Star Trek in everything. So let's see, Elijah Cook. Okay. He was also in, I think Elijah Cook was also in Rosemary's Baby, The Adventures of Superman. He was a good friend of Jack Larson, too, the guy who played Jimmy Olsen in The Adventures of Superman. So let's see. All right, let us play the trailer for Scream, BLACULA Scream.
Who dares touch these rotting bones? Who dares call forth the most horrible specter of the damned? Now he's back. The Black Prince of Darkness, BLACULA, recalled by the awesome powers of voodoo to stalk the earth in a new quest for blood. BLACULA, Dracula's soul brother, seeded with hate, obsessed with vengeance, craving young bodies, lusting for hot blood to create new victims for the legions of the undead.
And believe in vampires. Good. That gives you something of an edge over the rest.
William Marshall, again, as the Lord of the Vampires, in a relentless search for Pam Grier, the exciting star of coffee.
I need you.
Now he is back. Ever more evil, ever more fearful than ever before.
The name is BLACULA!
Scream, Blacula, scream. The bloodiest legend of our time.
Who doesn't want to see that? This is one of Pam Grier's early films, too. She was just getting started. I think she had just finished Coffee, but then she went on to do a whole bunch of the run of blaxploitation films in the early and mid 70s. She did Sugar Hill, Coffee, Friday Foster, Black Mama, White Mama, and of course Foxy Brown. And she's great in all of those. I love Pam Grier. And then she had a reboot in her career in the Quentin Tarantino movie. You know, when I do these early shows, my brain isn't as sharp as it used to be when I'm trying to talk off the cuff. So that's why I'm going to rely on my pals here in the chat room to remind me of the oh my god, of the movie that Pam Grier was in. That doesn't matter. We'll figure it out. You guys will pop it in there for me, and it'll wake my mind up. This movie is actually better than Blacula. It has a lot of heart. The first one had a lot of heart too, because when Blacula comes back, he finds a woman who is basically the spitting image of his wife, and sort of like in the Mummy, where I think it's her spirit is in the body too, and he's trying to bring her back to him, and she ends up getting well, spoiler alert, she ends up getting killed, and then Blacula basically destroys himself, goes out into the sun and destroys himself. And then in the sequel, there's sort of a turf war between this voodoo clan, and Pam Grier is the rightful successor, and her rival revives Blacula because he has his bones, and he does some kind of incantation and brings him back into his cursed self. Jackie Brown. Thank you, Shane Burgess. Well done, sir. So when Blacula comes back, he finds out that he understands the power of voodoo, and that Pam Grier's character could have the ability to relieve him of his curse. So there's a certain amount of pathos that's in the character of Blacula that's in the both these films. He does these terrible things and everything, but he's also has this great royalty, that you kind of lock into. There's a great scene, and I believe it's in Dracula Scream, where he's walking the streets of Los Angeles, and a hooker approaches him, and he wants something to do with her. Then her two pimps come on, and he says, what's wrong with you? Are you gay? You don't like our merchandise, and give us your money. And then he turns into his Blacula self, and he's yelling at these two guys that you've put your sister into slavery, and you are imitating your slave masters. Basically grills him about what these guys are doing with their lives. And it's really, really a cool and powerful scene, because the whole point of Blacula, when he was that he was trying to end slavery and end the slave trade. So, he takes that into the modern day too, and it's a really cool and powerful scene, I think. Let's see, what else is Michael Conrad's in this movie too. People remember him from Hill Street Blues. He was like the sergeant that would send the guys out, have a great day. And so this is definitely a better film than Blacula, because it's also creepier. The locations where stuff happens is scarier. The lighting. There's a lot more vampires. This is like the small army, and then the cops go into this mansion where the army of vampires are, and it's just like a bloodbath of vampires killing cops and the cops killing the vampires, and it's really, really cool. And meanwhile, Pam Grier is is going through the incantations, trying to relieve Blackula of his curse. Of course, it gets interrupted, and Blackula's all pissed off. And I have to say the ending is a little open-ended. I don't know. Maybe they were thinking that they would do a third one, and I wish they did, because I could have seen William Marshall play Blackula, again and again, because there was a whole slew of stories that could have been told with this. So that's pretty cool. Let's see who's in the chat room this morning. We have some of our regulars. Pop Culture Avenger is in here. Hyper Kaiju, good morning. Statistical Zero has to bug out. He's got to do some work and earn some money. Good for you, sir. George Travlos, Dr. Mask, some of our regulars. Otis Rose, good morning. Happy weekend. Mr. Brian Blevins is in here. Good morning. Good morning, Alyssa. Bill Field, Scott Clark. Good stuff. Alyssa comments, Marshall's voice, the James Earl Jones of the genre. Absolutely, that voice of his has that timbre, and just like James Earl Jones, Shakespearean trained. Great stuff. Oh, good morning, Chris. Dr. Mass tells us that Scream is on YouTube as well. Let's see, who else do we got here? Chris's favorite movie is The Maltese Falcon. Favorite movie ever. Wow. Dr. Mask, Cogley, I believe he's referring to Elijah Cook Jr. and the Star Trek connection I pointed out to. Yes, Samuel J. Cogley, attorney at law, who represented Captain Kirk in the first season episode Court Martial. Oh yeah, the beautiful Pam Grier. Cool. Cotton's going to catch the show later. Okay. I wonder if you guys watching these movies before we dig into them, or have you just seen them in the past? I'm just curious about that. George refreshing my brain. Thank you, sir, for Jackie Brown. Jackie Brown was based on a Elmore Leonard book. One of my favorite authors. Seven Bark says whoever had the idea of getting voodoo involved in the BLACULA series should get a raise. Yeah, it was very much inspired. There was a Hammer Dracula film. I think it was might have been Dracula 1972 AD, where there was these cultists that revived Dracula and his bones. I get those Hammer ones confused. There were so many of them that they poured out in the 60s and then early 70s. And I can't remember which one was which. A lot of them had similar things going on. But I seem to remember one where the blood, was used in some type of a ritual. It wasn't necessarily voodoo, but maybe some type of cultish ritual, and it made Dracula rise up and configure himself. Hyper Kaiju says, smash that like button. Oh, my brother's up and watching. Good morning, Chris. Chris is actually going to be a guest on my show when we discuss one of our most important films growing up as kids, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. That'll be an evening broadcast. Date to be determined, but that movie will be definitely well discussed. So tune in for that one. I'll keep you posted when that one comes up. Jaime Diaz. It scared the hell out of me as a kid, especially the scene in the morgue when the dead girl wakes up and kills the mortician. Explains why I'm screwed up today. That is an awesome scene. And the makeup for the day on these various vampires is really cool. And particularly in Scream, BLACULA Scream, there's so many vampires in there and they've got different looks. All the guys have the crazy hair, like down on the side, on the cheeks and stuff. But the makeup was very effective. They're very creepy looking, and the music was creepy too. Yeah, it's really these are good movies for what they are, you know. Dig the '70s clothes too. Willie's outfits were styling. Absolutely. There's a great scene where Willie, he's been turned into a vampire, and he's very self-absorbed individual, and he's going out on the town, and he gets dressed up and he goes to look in the mirror and he realizes he can't see himself, and he's like, man, I don't mind being a vampire, but a man's got to see himself. So he's asking Blacula, about his threads, how he's looking and stuff like that. It's a pretty funny scene. George likes the Hammer Dracula movies better than the Universals. Well, yeah, the Universals aren't. The only Dracula movies is the first one with Bela. Then you got Son of Dracula with Lon Chaney Jr. And then you got the Raleigh films, House of Dracula, House of Frankenstein, where John Carradine is playing him. And in none of those movies is there any blood. In none of those movies are there any fangs or anything like that. So when Hammer rolls along, and they've got the brides of Dracula with these low cut dresses and the fangs and the blood in Christopher Lee's eyes. Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see how you'd like those better. Good morning, Nick C. He digs Blacula. Those were fun movies. What's this? Check out The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. It's a joint production between Shaw Brothers and Hammer. Oh, interesting. I'll have to look for that one. Okay. Let's see here. What do we got? Did I cover all our images? Oh, yeah. Thank you, Nick. I forgot Dracula's Daughter, the direct sequel to Dracula. That movie was supposed to have Bela in it, but he wanted to be paid more because he got paid practically nothing for the first Dracula. And Universal decided, well, they'll just put a dummy in the coffin that looks like Bela. And that's the only scene, where Dracula's in it. So they just kind of wrote him out of it. Let's see, did I cover everybody in here? Have you seen Tales from the Hood? That movie scared the crap out of me as a kid. I think I have seen that, but it's been a long time. Referring to Michael Conrad. Be careful out there. That's what it was. Alrighty. Let's see if If anybody popped in here that I'm missing, I'd like to give a shout out to everybody who's in the room here. No, I think we got everybody in. Seven Golden Vampires, a cool kung fu vampire. I thought so. I thought that was a kung fu movie. Okay. Yeah, I remember that. Okay. Well, I think that's going to wrap up our double feature here. These two movies go together so well. I mean, I watched them back to back yesterday just so I could bone up on them. And it almost feels like one movie. Uh, that's why I have a hard time separating the two. Talking about them because it just almost feels like one continuous story. So that's kind of cool that they did that. A year later, and a whole different cast, a whole different story, but it seems like it just kind of moved together uh, uh, in a linear fashion. It was good stuff. So tomorrow, we're going to talk about the movie that set Vincent Price on his horror career. He actually did an early horror film in 1939, The Return of the Invisible Man. But most of his stuff in the 40s was all dramas and melodramas, and maybe some suspense films. If you haven't seen him in His Kind of Woman, it's a John Farrow film with Robert Mitchum. Watch that movie. If you have nothing to do today, find that movie and watch it. His Kind of Woman. It defies description, and Vincent Price steals this movie away from everybody. He plays an Errol Flynn type actor who really wants to be the kind of person he plays on films, and he's absolutely fantastic. Ah, Billy, good morning, sir. Have you ever watched any Mexican horror movies? Yeah, I have. Some of those are good. I like the ones where they mash up the luchador stuff with the horror. Those are kind of neat. Okay. Here's Billy. Sorry I couldn't make your show last night, bud. I hope it went well. I'll have to watch it once it's posted, or it's probably posted now. But Billy's doing a history of horror movies, and I was on the first episode. I couldn't do it last night. I had a prior engagement, but then the third one, which will be covering, I think, late 1930s through the 40s, I'll be on next month. Bo Smith, the Mexican version of Dracula was excellent. Yeah, I mean, I talked about that, and Billy too says Spanish Dracula far superior to Lugosi's. I talked about those films in the Dracula version, and superior only in the way it was shot, not in its impact, because Carlos Villarreal, it was no Bela Lugosi, and the guy who played Renfield, was no Dwight Fry. Just on the strength of those two performances alone is why we remember that movie 80 years later. The Vincent Price fan, Monster fan, says Price also does great comedy in Champagne for Caesar with Ronald Colman. Yeah, Price is so underrated. He is like in some ways Bela and Boris, in that you can stick him in bad movies and he's still always good in them. Julie and I watched Theater of Blood the other day from 1972, 73, something like that. Not a great movie, but of course Vincent Price is great in it, Billy and Bo both agree with me, which is good for them because they better agree with me, all right? I know where they live. El Santo, yeah, that's the he was the blue something, wasn't he? Santo's the blue. They called him the blue something. He was a wrestler, and a movie. The character was in all these Mexican adventure / horror films too. The Blue Demon, was that it? Santo, the Blue Demon. I mean, you guys that are up on your Mexican monster movies, you know, can chime in there. Oh, I never did announce what that movie was. I got sidetracked here. Tomorrow's movie will be 1954, 1953's House of Wax. It was Vincent Price's, you know, as he began his career in horror films, you know, at a regular pace. This is the movie that I like to point to when we talked about The Creature from the Black Lagoon and the decisions that they had to make because of the budget to either film it in color or film it in 3D, and they chose 3D. In House of Wax, Warner Brothers, who made that film, a much better heeled film studio than Universal, they put all the dollars on the screen and they did it in Technicolor and 3D. And it's excellent, beautifully filmed, and we're going to talk about that one tomorrow. So I think that'll wrap today's show up. We will see you tomorrow for Vincent Price and House of Wax, and